The north wind blew handfuls of snowflakes stuck together from the mountains, covering the ground and everything at its level with a cold, frosty blanket, chilling the bones with low temperatures. Something like a rabbit jumped out of nowhere, with a malicious giggle and a bright, keen gaze, deftly maneuvering in the air as if in matter with a soft physical shell. He greeted the two players who had just arrived, immediately warning them to get ready, as they were already entering the game. Hanging in the air, Rabbit slyly explained that the first, relatively simple level was aimed at qualification. Jun, the first player, was skeptical about the information he received, but it was unclear whether it was because of the simplicity of the level or because of its definition. Lena, the second player, seemed to be more struck by the location they appeared in. The snow on her palms felt like sharp little shards, and the steam coming from her mouth could not pass for reality in her thoughts. She was genuinely surprised by the initial level in Eden, amazed at how detailed and worked out it was down to every little detail. And, of course, Lena couldn't help but voice her thoughts about the weather. Here in Eden, it was really chilly. Her teeth were already threatening to chatter against each other in just a couple of minutes. But Jun didn't seem to care much about this, either because of the banal clothes, or because he himself wasn't really a fan of warmth by nature. The game's exaggerated rabbit attracted attention by leaning his furry muzzle towards the players' faces and announcing that entering the game with a weapon was not allowed. If Jun or Lena even wanted to bring a weapon, it would be immediately and automatically confiscated, considering it an inaccessible resource, just like radio communication during the game. The rabbit gave a completely insincere congratulation to Jun, proclaiming him a special player with a number and the designation Lovers. To which Jun himself was not even surprised, because the expression of the designation assigned to him in the game was impossible to determine. "Wow, you're a number player? Amazing," Lena commented with genuine amazement in her voice, meeting a number player in person for the first time, having previously only seen people like Jun online. "For now, yes, but it's not a fact that we'll survive," Jun answered with a heavy sigh, closing his eyes and muttering barely audibly under his breath from behind his buttoned collar. "Oh, right," Lena said sheepishly, taking on the boy's behavior and lowering her voice a half-tone, mentioning the game instructions, which described many random but dangerous penalties. But she immediately tried to calm Jun down with confidence, because she and her sister had watched a lot of different videos about the game, and promised to help the guy get up. Jun decided not to comment on this. It was unlikely that he needed the help of a girl with questionable experience in games in practice, and not just in theory from instructions on the World Wide Web. "Do you get along well?" was the only thing he decided to ask, noticing a glittering pendant in the shape of a deer's head with a symbolic inscription on her neck. Lena did not let this question go in one ear and out the other. She immediately grabbed it, because such words, in her opinion, denoted a hidden story, so she decided to answer the question with a question. "Does Jun have a younger sister?" To which the guy threw only a laconic statement. Lena was not satisfied with this. She wanted more details about the family relationship between the older brother and younger sister, demanding that Jun tell her. But there was nothing to tell. Jun's sister was dead, and he informed them of this no less briefly, coldly and caustically, like the snow that continued to beat them in small grains on their faces. "Oh." Lena immediately pulled away, apologizing and asking Jun not to be sad about this, quickly trying to correct the situation and the growing awkwardness. "He came," Jun said instead of answering on the topic, as if he had sensed with his sixth sense the approach of something invisible, leading Lena into a state of blatant misunderstanding. After the rabbit landed noisily behind them, raising wind and an avalanche of snow from the snowdrifts, Lena already realized who Jun was talking about, barely managing to save her skirt from the gust. Fluffy, looking down at the players as if they were worthless bugs, announced in a heavy voice the meaning of this level. What awaits them next is required to understand whether they are worthy of completing this game at all. He easily determined the number of players and announced the time it would take to complete the entire game, which was 72 hours. And he asked to pay special attention to the conditions of the game, hinting at a double bottom and pitfalls, and then, putting out an open paw, he begins the countdown to the start of the game, starting from 5 to 1. Lena screamed loudly when an inscription appeared out of nowhere on the snow under her feet, clearly indicating the first level of the riddle. "Bailey has 100 matches." Jun reads out loud, wondering what kind of problem this is, arithmetic or logical, while the conditions of the problem appear below. containing the maximum number of points for its solution. Lena didn't pay attention to the fact that the player would lose the right to participate in the game and would be immediately removed if he didn't score points within 5 minutes or made a mistake in the answer. She was more concerned about the fact that the entire initial level consisted of only one sentence. And Jun, deciding not to waste time, immediately realized that he needed hints to find the correct answer and went in search of them. He noticed something suitable, not particularly standing out against the white, snow-covered background, but his intuition told him to go there. To a wooden, shabby sign, as if it had already seen a hard life, with an uneven, bumpy layer of snow stuck to it. Without moving away from the problem, Lena in turn remembered that in front of them was just a classic math problem, and to pass it you just need to write, solve, and get a few necessary points. But as soon as the thin girl's finger finished writing the supposed answer, someone's cold shadow blocked the inscription, and a viscous substance, reminiscent of resin in density, began to flow from above. Lena immediately froze, as if the temperature around her had dropped by half to minus in 1 second, freezing all her insides and the very blood flowing through her hot veins, depriving her of any opportunity to move, or even breathe. She slowly raised her head and was met with the gaze of a terrible, disgusting creature that did not belong to any living being in the real world. The substance flowing straight from the creature's face hit the face, building a stream down Lena's neck, freezing and causing the skin to go numb from contact. It looked at Lena with red eyes, as if filled with the blood of the eliminated players, dulled by a long sleep, emitting a low hum from its wide-open mouth, only delaying the moment of the inevitable, as if playing with Lena, like a cat with a mouse. Lena didn't make a single sound, so Jun didn't notice the appearance of a certain guest in their game. Thinking about the rule hidden on the sign under the snow, which stated that leaving the city without permission from the mayor was prohibited and violation would be punished according to the law. In space, echoing off the winter mountains, the voice of the rabbit sounded, notifying about the wrong answer to the question, and Jun reacted instantly, because if he did not give the correct answer within 20 seconds, Lena would be removed from the game. Turning around, Jun notices a sarcastically laughing rabbit flying past Lena, who has settled right on the snow, and behind her is an incredible silhouette, as if hastily assembled by a child from the snow. The rabbit, as if mocking and gloating over the players, began counting down from 20 and Jun, cursing, abruptly rushed from his place towards Lena. He was rapidly approaching the girl's figure and the inexplicable elongated silhouette that continued to stand threateningly over Lena, thereby clearly putting her into a stupor. With a satisfied smile, already rejoicing at the failure of the players who had just entered the level, Rabbit continued the countdown without interfering with what was happening. Jun had only a few meters left when the dark silhouette became visible to his eyes and dropped its lower jaw, opening its mouth to Lena's full height, while she herself, from the fear that pierced her to the bones, did not have the strength not only to move, but even to hold back the tears flowing down her frozen cheeks. Her face twisted in a grimace of horror, became completely different from the beginning of the level, her gaze glazed over with horror. It seemed that the gaping mouth of a creature ready to devour her in one go froze in her pupils, and on her own lips froze a barely audible, "Save me," to Junu. Jun understands that he has literally a few seconds to figure out what to do and, moreover, to do it correctly, because it is not his life that is at stake, but someone else's. But he comes to a choice, not doubting his decision. A deafening explosion is heard in the epicenter between Lena and the monster, scattering frozen pieces of snow and creating a snow fog that covers the girl. His gaze only catches Lena's face for a few seconds, her frozen tears, her eyes that hadn't had time to comprehend what was happening, and the pendant that flashed with a copper shine, flying off her neck like a frightened butterfly from a shaken flower. Jun froze, blood splashed in the air. The remains of the explosion and scraps of Lena's light dress flew like burning ash, signaling that the rescue had failed. The monster's mouth was slammed shut, and it became one solid piece of ice, frozen in a position that was vulnerable to Jun. There were only 10 seconds left for the correct answer and Jun, returning to an active state, moved towards the creature, gathering all the strength and energy in his body. With a resounding thud, his precise, controlled blow landed on the creature's face, effortlessly throwing it off balance. It took only 2 seconds for the bulky body to collide with the trunk of a dry tree, breaking it from the momentum of the impact, while Jun, without losing precious seconds, moved towards solving the problem. The rabbit, who was watching what was happening and did not expect such an outcome of events, was perplexed, losing the previously satisfied grin from his furry face. Sliding her feet across a patch of snow-covered ice, June grabs a branch that has flown off a broken tree, grounding herself with her hand to catch her balance and stop on the ice. Without wasting the few remaining seconds, he erects a branch under the problem written in the snow and draws the correct answer next to Lena's incorrect answer. Raising her hand, June coolly checks her own written solution, which turns out to be ridiculously superficial. Answer: Bailey has 100 matches. The bell rang and Rabbit announced to everyone that June had earned 2 points out of a possible 15. Exhaling discontentedly through his nose, he wished everyone a pleasant game in the future, even despite the player's level. Unfortunately, only one player, all that remains of Lena is her symbolic pendant, meekly lying in the snow. This is not mathematics, but a logic problem in which you can get points even if you copy the question as a statement, June says out loud, not for herself and, especially, not for the knowledgeable Rabbit, but for Lena. If you disappear like that, your sister will want to find you in Eden. He clutches the pendant he picked up in his palm, hiding it from the snowfall. The crunch of snow from footsteps was heard from the side, and a voice projection announced that the player had entered into a conflict with the locals, to which the local security service responded. We've received a complaint about a fight at the entrance to the city. The raspy voice of a security officer comes from a creature similar to the one who attacked Lena. Are you the instigator? No, June answers serenely, shaking her head and not even blinking at the ogre-like appearance in front of her. Don't deny it, you were caught on camera. We have a peaceful town. We don't like outsiders like you. Mentally named Jun the ogre immediately reacts indignantly to him. Every time you show up near our town, something happens. Fighting is a serious offense, we will arrest you. This is not a fight, he is a victim. Jun shows the ogres the previously unseen body of their comrade, standing half-turned. You know the law, huh? The head of security asks rhetorically before resorting to extreme measures. Jun went to the local police station without resistance, as if that was exactly what he wanted, and in the photograph for his personal file he smiled kindly at the law enforcement officers. The boss cheerfully announces Jun's administrative arrest for 5 days for petty hooliganism, as a disturber of the peace. Taking advantage of the opportunity, the guy asks permission to ask a question while the law enforcement officer has not yet finished writing his report. Surprisingly, the chief willingly allows Jun to speak, either out of the kindness of his heart or out of boredom. June asks about the sign prohibiting a city resident from leaving the city without permission, to which she receives a detailed answer. It is prohibited not only for a citizen, but also for any visitor without proper permission, otherwise it will be considered a crime and punishable by death. So harsh, isn't it better for you than putting everything to fire and sword? Jun asks sincerely, what fire and sword? But at night, the chief turns to the boy with a sly tone in his voice. You can kill people and eat their delicious meat. Having finished writing the report, the chief left his temporary workplace, leaving Jun alone with his thoughts. He didn't think for long and immediately reached into his inventory for a scarf, which he pushed through one of the strongest beams on the ceiling. After tugging a couple times to test the strength, June ties the ends of the scarf into a knot, creating a ring out of the garment. And a whole crowd watched what was happening live on air, commenting on his actions. In one of the rows, as if in a movie theater, Lena's avatar woke up, confused and not understanding what was happening. Jumping up from her seat, she immediately shook her digital head in confusion, trying to understand where she was. New girl, her avatar, a pixelated face resembling an elderly man, called out. Welcome backstage. Backstage? Lena asked stupidly in a nervous tone, turning towards the sound of the mechanical voice. What is it? The world of players whose accounts have been deleted, the old man kindly explains. This game has many observers, you can consider as spectators of the gameplay. So, Lena's voice, breaking through the grinding sound of the speaker, had noticeably faded. So we're dead? But, my sister, she remembers first, looking down at the floor. She'll be looking for me everywhere. Don't worry, look over there. The old man points to the screen with the online broadcast, and Lena looks forward. He took your amulet with him and wants to return it to your sister when they meet. He explains to the girl, telling what happened earlier, which Lena missed. Meanwhile, June climbs up onto the hill and begins to rock back and forth on her heels, holding on to the loop of her scarf. With a jerk he jumps forward, holding on to the beam that creaks under his weight. With ease, June knocks out a wall of old, frozen boards of brittle wood, breaking out into the street. All the observers behind the scenes were left with conflicting emotions of misunderstanding by his performance. June lands successfully on her feet, leaving the prison, kicking up dust and attracting the attention of the officers sitting nearby. This was not part of his plans. He hoped that the chief and his assistants had long since gone home and had not stayed behind to kill time gambling. The boss, taken aback by the sudden appearance of the player, slowly realizes what has happened, forgetting about the progress of the card game. Jun is immediately called out to throughout the street, and he himself takes off from his place, shouting a laconic "bye" to his pursuers. Very soon he disappeared from sight, covering up the traces of his escape and hiding in a place invisible to the guards. There was no further plan as such, and Jun began to quickly figure out how he could advance further along the level without attracting unnecessary attention. From the side, the snow crunched under the pressure of a careful step, tearing Jun out of his own thoughts. Reacting instantly, he reflexively swings, without even turning around to look at the one who snuck up on him from behind. The unexpected guest, not expecting an attack, does not move further, but does not step back either, simply freezing in place from fear. Just as abruptly as he was about to strike, Jun stops, his soul sliding on the snow, causing the young stranger to reflexively shrink. His fist only lightly touched the girl's soft cheek, while she hesitantly opened one eye, realizing that the pain never came. The rabbit ears that perked up on top of his head made Jun raise his eyebrows in confusion. "Shish." The girl puts her index finger to her lips, speaking in a voice only Jun can hear. "We can't let them notice us. They eat people." Jun hides the lower part of his face in his collar and exhales. This information did not sound new to him, and the appearance of the young lady knocked him out of his thoughts about further passage. The rabbit, who appeared in a patch of fog, shot a glance and congratulated the player on meeting the key character of the plot, thanks to whom the quest was updated. Bailey has 100 matches, winter will last 2 more months, and Bailey and the townspeople need warmth. Rabbit calmly introduces the context of the update. The task sounded like it would take a long time, since Bailey didn't have a home, and one of the city's residents was willing to provide housing, but for 5,000 copper coins for 2 months. Bailey decided to sell her matches at the market price, 10 coppers apiece, continues Rabbit, with a bored, forced-to-speak look. But the player can show off his skills and sell them for a better price, right? He adds more sarcastically, and then announces the points that can be obtained for completing the level. 1,200 points. "So you're Bailey with the 100 matches?" June asks amiably, as if he hadn't listened to Rabbit at all. "Brother, will you help me find a house?" The girl answers the question with a confused question, as if she is not listening to Jun. "As a thank you, you will be able to leave the city safely. I promise." Bailey emphasizes the promise with his intonation, and Jun forms a logical chain for completing the level. As an additional outcome, the rabbit casually tells about Bailey's ignorance of love, and offers the player to help her with this for a reward of 600 points. Behind the scenes, the old man, watching, remembers his youth. Someone flares up with a desire to see this branch of events, while Lena frowns with displeasure, not perceiving such a moment as cute. June, with a forced smile on her face, agrees with Bailey and holds out her hand, casually asking where the matches are. "Brother, you ran away," Bailey reminds him, handing June the matches he needs. "If you go and sell them, you'll get arrested." "Not enough," says the player, instead of calming words and a different suggestion, gesturing to the girl to give more. Without suspicion or ulterior motives, Bailey, under the furious and inaudible comments of the spectators inside the game, holds out another. But June demands more and more, until Bailey's ears perk up and his hand reaches out with more hesitation as he holds out the matches. "Why are you so greedy?" June asks, taking another pack, leaving the girl completely confused and stupefied for a few seconds. Having lost her temper, she throws all the matches she has into Jun's hands, turning away sullenly and walking away from him. June, having achieved what he wanted, smiles, takes a flask of fuel from his pocket and generously pours it on a nearby wooden building. With one movement he lights a match, the wick of which ignites without fail in his hands. Bailey doesn't hear the crackle of the lit fuse. He only plays on his resentment, not noticing how June uses matches for sale to start a fire. until a smoldering match falls next to the caricature Bailey has drawn in the snow with a stick. The matches fly one after another and, together with the rabbit, who has taken on an adequate size, Bailey turns around at the flash of light behind their backs. June stands literally in a corridor of burning buildings that he himself set on fire, serene and calm, as if the flames were nothing more than a flame on a candle. "Well, is it beautiful, huh?" he asks with a slight smile, feeling a gaze on the back of his head and turning to look at the stunned observers. "Brother, this is the cheapest place to live," Bailey points to a building burning in the middle of the snowy city. "You burned it down. The player has violated local laws by committing arson," Rabbit screamed furiously, not expecting such an outcome at all. "City security has been notified and will take action against the player." Immediately after his words, the chief and his assistant appeared in sight, immediately reacting to the notification and cursing at Jun. "Did you do something again? Is she your victim? What did you make her do?" They began to bombard the guy with questions, pointing to the harmless Bailey next to him. "Don't talk nonsense." Jun takes the girl's rabbit ear with her fingers, making her flinch, and proudly declares, "I am the organizer, and she is the accomplice who gave me what I needed to commit the crime." "You're really good at laws." Rabbit and the chief squealed in unison, both indignant and admiring at Jun's move. The second time Jun ends up at the police station, Bailey is with him, and the guy is sentenced to 5 years in prison for arson, and the girl to 1 year. "Brother, you promised me a house, didn't you?" Bailey asks tearfully, his voice thin and his annoyance obvious in his tone. "Bunny, how is prison not a home?" Jun answers, grinning and remaining calm. "See?" he asked mockingly, turning and looking through the wooden bars at Rabbit. Tom had nothing to say except incoherent speech and a dubious congratulation to the player. Behind the scenes, the audience was also silent, still slowly recovering from the shock of Jun's irrational actions. Upon hearing that the player has successfully completed the level and has earned the right to continue the game, Lena jumps up from her seat, loudly rejoicing at someone else's achievement. For this level, Jun received 1,200 points, collected one of the 12 hints, spent 18 hours and 39 minutes to complete, which is better than 98% of players. As a bonus, he received 300 points and a special item, Bailey's Blessing, which allows him to survive fatal damage once. For the level, Jun collected 20,091 subscribers, for which he received another 200 points, for a total of 1,700 points for completing the level. "Brother, will you come back here again?" Bailey asks, tugging on Jun's sleeve as Rabbit signals to prepare to leave the level in 1 minute. "Who wants to go back to this hole?" Jun mutters without thinking too long as the minute counts down. "Can I come visit you?" Bailey then asks sincerely in a low voice, watching the player with an innocent look. Jun, not expecting such a question, fell into a short stupor, blinking slowly and mentally reasoning over the necessary answer. "If you really can, then why not?" he replies quieter than usual, knowing that Bailey will not have such an opportunity. The countdown to exiting the game reaches 5 seconds. Bailey, already slowly dissolving into pixels, says goodbye to Jun. A mechanical beeping sound hits his ears faintly, knocking Jun out of the game level and back into the real world. Instead of the silence of a prison cell, there is the noise of roads and city life, and instead of Bailey's voice, there are the voices of passers-by. The usual flow of the big city went on as usual, blinding with daylight and not entirely clean air. Jun, having dialed the required number, notifies by phone about the completion of the level, simultaneously asking how things went for the guys from the same group as him. Stopping, he adds gloomily about the lack of hints in the level for beginners, doubting whether there will be any at all. "I'm almost there, lights out," Jun says lamely before ending the call. The three-dimensional figure, painted like graffiti, is familiar to Jun, as well as to all the city's residents. Windows error suddenly appeared in the sky around the world. XP. Then, against the backdrop of the emerging blue sky, an absolutely black triangular pyramid appeared, and 2 hours later, speech was heard from the same voice in all sorts of languages at the same time. "Welcome to Eden. Beta testing begins in 72 hours, the voice said then, thundering over the heads of the people. Soon everyone realized that Eden was indeed a game without a second life and a walkthrough. Everyone with a tattoo on their left wrist was a chosen player in a game that no one had ever played before. No one, but Jun intended to be the first to not only beat the game, but also finish what he started it for. So, you burned down the NPC's house and still got through? After listening to Jun's story about the game, his sister, Ellen, sums up what she heard. Yes, this is the main rule of the game, which contradicts the plot, Jun says in response. In an effort to maintain balance, the game allows damage to be done in order to save the player or find clues. Have you considered that what you did might not be enough for the required term? Ellen is uncertain about Jun's decision, suggesting that he might have missed details. Then I would violate so much that it would definitely be enough for her. With an innocent face and tone, Jun easily finds a way out of this. Okay. Ellen gives in with an exhale, deciding not to argue or lecture the guy. The main thing is that you're okay. Here's another one. Jun takes Lena's pendant out of her pocket, handing it to the girl. This was left by one of the new girls. Please give it to your sister. Tell her. Jun pauses, carefully choosing the thoughts he wants to express. That I hope she'll be okay. This isn't the first time Ellen has seen this side of Jun, and with a slight nod, she agrees to fulfill his request. Wait, but the guy's behavior doesn't stop Ellen's vigilance. Did you take vodka from the cabinet? Are you old enough for that? I recently turned 18, the young man answers proudly, showing the document. Huh, why are you more proud of coming of age than the level you passed? Ellen mutters with a slight tone of resentment. By the way, at the next level you will have an employer. Well, you know, we need to replenish Echo's budget, the girl informs in time, mentioning the name of their group. Jun just completed the beginner level, but Ellen claims that the newbie just recently completed it too. That's why the choice fell on Jun, because other players have been in the game for a long time, have more points and a higher difficulty level, so Jun himself had no choice. The new level was not distinguished by a sunny day and a serene atmosphere, hinting from the very beginning at the difficulty of its completion. But Jun was ready for any difficulties, appearing at the new location with confidence and a cool head. The dark forest had an enveloping coolness, humidity from the distant fog and a slight smell of dampness, reminiscent of mold or rot, forcing you to look around. The darkness and dense tree crowns did not allow us to see anything further than a couple of meters, hiding all the crunching of branches, rustling and hooting of nightbirds. A dim flash appeared above the brick mansion near the forest, from which, as if from a ball of tangled threads, a figure began to emerge. From it, under the light of the blood moon, a ball-jointed doll appeared, with a blank stare and a frozen smile on its face, welcoming the players to Eden. This is a standard level, average player count, 1067, number of participants, 7, she says in a mechanical doll voice. Game duration, 360 hours. Doll looks at the players who have appeared, who have now been noticed by Jun. The introduction to the plot was supposed to start in 5 minutes, there was still time to get mentally prepared, but Jun was thinking about something completely different. Through the rotting leaves under his feet, he stepped on something soft that crunched faintly under his steps. He bent down and raised his hand with the now dead tissue, while the viewers from the wings, seeing Jun on the live broadcast screen, could not help but comment, clearly happy to see him again. The hand appeared to belong to a long-dead woman, which caused a stormy and varied reaction among the audience. Ding ding, plot update, the doll announced after 5 minutes, attracting the attention of both players and spectators. According to the plot of this level, the players were taken in by the headmistress Lee, who is very strict with her 9 children. Today she ordered them to go shopping, but according to the script, the players got carried away with the fun and were late, which made the manager very angry. The plot introduction has been revealed. Please return home within 20 minutes, Kukla finishes, bowing slightly to the players. The countdown begins. Now, she looks at the players with a creepy glassy gaze, announcing the start of the game. Her behavior did not frighten Jun. He only thought about the words he heard. The doll announced that there were only 7 players and 9 children. He was distracted by the cry of a female player from the side among the other participants. Her hand was grabbed by the manager Lee, who appeared out of nowhere. Why are you standing here waiting to die? The old woman said indignantly in a creaky voice. But I told you to come back by 10. I'm sorry. I understand my mistake. It won't happen again. The girl immediately began to justify herself, trying to break free from the tenacious grip. Help, someone, help. Breaking family rules will result in punishment, the manager reminds with some pleasure, squeezing her fingers tighter on the girl's wrist. She dragged the female player into the mansion, effortlessly overcoming her resistance, and slammed the door behind her with a loud bang. The players who remained on the street watched the situation in horror, listening to the girl's muffled voice justifying herself by saying that she was lost. Jun, remaining in his place with an unwaveringly thoughtful look, watched what was happening from afar. Punishment? What is it? The young man muttered out loud under his breath, clinging to this thought as the main one that would help him move along the plot. Suddenly the stone on his ring began to glow, gathering into one thin line and purposefully pointing the way behind the fluffy bush. Making his way through the foliage, Jun notices a boy hiding, apparently no older than him, with the same ring that his own was pointing to. The young man, reacting to the movement of branches and rustling of leaves, turns around sharply, shuddering violently. Echo Development Group, Jun, the guy introduces himself, holding out his open palm to the boy. Gook, the young man sighed with relief and willingly took the hand, rising from the damp ground. Your employer. But he didn't have time to stand up completely. The doll's voice from somewhere above announced a request to return to the plot in 5 minutes, otherwise, the players would be removed from the game. Gook, frightened by the sinister manager, asks Jun in a panic what they should do, and the elder calmly returns to the mansion, because if Manager Lee wants an explanation, she will get it. But the explanations of the previous players were useless. If the elder continues like this, then... Gook fell silent, thinking under his breath and frankly doubting that they would be able to avoid punishment. Headmistress Lee was already waiting for them. Having taken all the other players into the house, Jun and Gook were her last children, who had angered them by being late. Violation of family rules entails, the old woman begins once again in a sepulchral voice, extending her hand to the approaching players. Mother. Jun began in the same tone, adopting her mood, stopping opposite her. Why don't you meet us late in the evening? His phrase brought both the manager Lee and Gook, who was completely not expecting such words, into a momentary stupor with amazement. It's so dark outside, we got lost in the forest. Jun puts on an offended look and tone, puffing out his cheeks. And there's someone's dead body lying on the side of the road. Junior GU and I were so scared that we couldn't move. Mother is silent, confused, frozen with her hand outstretched, while Gook is actively sweating from nerves, looking at Jun, who is offended like a small child. Have you fallen out of love with us? Jun raises her eyebrows, moving on to her ace in the hole. You probably decided that looking after so many children was too much of a hassle and decided to abandon us? You don't love us at all. You probably don't even consider us your children. Jun made Mother herself the culprit instead of himself, and she, coming out of her stupor, tried to justify herself in a crumpled manner. Then why don't you meet us? We're scared. Jun lightly tugs the shoulder of the frozen Gook. If you don't want to acknowledge us, we'll leave right now. Jun finishes with her final phrase, turning away from Mother. Wait! The old woman grabs Jun by the shoulder, catching herself in time. Mom didn't reject you. I was really worried about you while I was at home. Jun snorts, wiping away the tears squeezed out by the acting and resentfully sticking out her lower lip, showing Mother all her displeasure. Don't be afraid, don't be afraid. We're already home. Let's eat first, Mother chatters, patting Jun on the shoulder. Little GU will come with you. Mommy was waiting for you to have dinner together. Mother leads the boys into the living room of the mansion to the other players, telling them about Jun's favorite dish that she cooked and promising to meet him next time. Jun, without breaking character, continues to press on pity, reminding Mother how scary it was in the forest at night, now attracting the attention of other participants. Okay. Mom made a mistake. Here, drink some water. Mother began to circle around Jun like a chicken around an egg, to which the young man snorted, driving the others into a stony stupor. That's great, we'll all have dinner and then go to bed, Mother coos, clearly in a more pleasant mood, and the guy advises the boys to eat like at home. No one started eating, still trying to analyze the guy's actions and understand how he had managed to so easily calm Mother's ardor, avoiding her punishment. Mom, where are the others? Unlike his comrades, Jun was not shy about stuffing his mouth. Your older sister is not feeling well, she went upstairs to sleep, Mother says quietly, with palpable longing for her older daughter. And the youngest one drank some milk and is sleeping. When the old woman turned away, Jun's expression immediately changed, wondering where milk could have come from in the mansion, since Mother herself was clearly too old for it. By the way, your little sister slept a lot during the day, so she will most likely wake up at night. Who will look after her?" In response to Mother's question, no willing volunteers appeared. Everyone just bowed their heads. The silence of the players clearly did not please Old Lady Lee. Her mood changed again, her thin eyebrows frowned, and her face became covered with a fine network of wrinkles. "I'll keep an eye on it," June says after chewing, breaking the silence that had fallen at the table. "Here he is, Mommy's hero." Mother coos again with delight, freeing everyone else from responsibility. "You eat, and I'll go and rest." Mother peacefully leaves the living room, leaving the children alone. Of those present, only June wished her good night. The players breathed a sigh of relief. The departure of the headmistress Lee gave them a small breath of air and time to think, discuss, and come to their senses. While they were uncertainly discussing whether this food could be eaten at all, the girl whom Mother had first dragged into the mansion trembled slightly, reminding her of the punishment and wondering what it meant. "It's hard to say, this is already my 4th level, but from experience I can say that before the punishment was applied immediately," says the short-haired player. "But what if the punishment is lethal?" His words frighten everyone, confuse them, bring fear and panic back into their eyes. Everyone except Jun. He continues to stuff his stomach with food. "Then one of us could die today." The final conclusion is pronounced out loud by the players, reminding them that they should not relax. After finishing his meal, Jun left the communal table, where a temporary mourning had fallen, to explore the mansion. He was still waiting to meet his little sister, who, according to Jun's assumptions, was only a year or 2 old, since she was fed with milk. On the first floor there was a living room, dining room and a kitchen. The youngest was not there, which meant she was somewhere upstairs. "Senior," Gook calls out, catching up with Jun on the steps, unable to control the tone of his voice in the night. "Can I stay close?" the younger one asks uncertainly, with awkwardness and slight shame, but with sincere desire in his voice. "Yes, except for going to the toilet and the bathroom." June agrees immediately, without thinking. "Stay in sight more often, think even more about what you're doing, and stay out of the way." Gook agreed to these conditions, actively thanking Jun for his kindness, missing the point that the elder was paid for this by the group. "By the way, in this business there is a rule. The employer pays the full amount, and if he dies, he underpays, so even if you don't survive, I'll get mine," Jun casually mentioned, turning to the younger one. Gook only laughed nervously, not knowing how to react to such words, to be afraid or to remain calm. Jun continued his exploration of the mansion on the 2nd floor, now walking quietly along the corridors with Gook in search of his little sister's bedroom. With a long creak, he opened one of the doors, immediately noticing a crib and a peacefully sleeping child in it. The youngest didn't react to those who entered, continuing to snore, hugging the toy version of the doll, but embarrassing Gook with a trace of blood at the corner of her mouth. "Senior, could her favorite milk be blood?" Gook asked in a whisper, leaning over the baby's crib. "It's possible," Jun answered easily, pulling out a change of clothes and towels. "The bathroom and toilet are separate here and both are at the end of the hallway. Are you going to take a shower?" "No, I'll manage. I'll wash myself in the morning." Gook waves his hand, taking Jun's actions as a hint not to make unnecessary movements and take risks. "Oh, then I'll wash myself." Contrary to Gook's assumptions, Jun himself headed towards the exit of the bedroom towards the bathroom. "And the safety instructions?" Gook says through the closed door, not having time to attract the attention of the elder. The night passed peacefully, leaving the mansion in silence and sleepiness, leaving Gook to peacefully wait for Jun to come out of the bathroom without incident. Now the two of them leaning over his little sister's bed, Gook talks about his doubts that she is really sleeping. "Hey, are you sleeping? Wake up!" Jun immediately began to shake and disturb the younger one, causing Gook to twitch in place. "It looks like she won't wake up anytime soon," the elder concludes. "It's already late, let's go to bed too. Is everything really okay?" Gook still couldn't believe what was happening. The younger one really hadn't woken up. The night plunged the boys into slumber, laying them down on the bed and quickly reminding them of rest and late hour. Unlike Gook's anxious and suspicious calm before the storm, Jun was not worried about anything, falling into a deep, sound sleep. But it was he who jumped up first, as if at the call of a gong, from a deafening scream from another room, but so loud that it easily reached their bedroom. Grabbing the still sleepy and uncomprehending Gook by the chest, Jun pulled him out of bed with one movement, dragging him along with him. Rushing towards the source of the scream, June passes other players who have come out of their rooms, flying into the right one, to the short-haired participant. "Save me, something is holding me by the legs." The guy's whole body and voice were shaking from terrible fear. Letting go of Gook, Jun rushed to his aid, extending his own hand to meet his outstretched one. The player, feeling the hope of salvation from Jun, who had come running in the middle of the night, froze in place, for a second forgetting what had caused his scream. But instead of the player's hand, Jun dove under the bed, grabbing hold of what was holding the guy's legs. A clawed, withered hand came into view, the flesh giving way under a strong grip, giving the impression that Jun was clutching bone. Bracing his foot against the edge of the bed, Jun grabbed a firmer grip, pulling his hand away from the player and began to forcefully pull his arm out. Its owner did not give in, resisted and began to pull back. Jun squeezed tighter and began to twist. The cracking of skin and flesh was heard under his onslaught. Thick, dark brown blood gushed from the easily appeared wound. The owner of the hand pulled it out of Jun's grip from the wild pain. Thanks to the blood, it slipped even from his tenacious fingers and disappeared under the bed. Going downstairs, June bent down in bewilderment, looking under the bed, wanting, if not to grab, then at least to see. "Disgusting," June mutters, looking at the liquid remaining on his fingers, which is rotten blood. "Okay, the creature is gone. Go back to sleep," he says cheerfully, pretending to calm Gook, who is standing nearby, and, taking advantage of the moment, wipes his hands on him. "Hey, man, thanks. If it weren't for you, I'd be screwed." The short-haired man grabs Jun by the sleeve of his robe, still kneeling. "It's a piece of cake." Jun waved it off, but the feeling that remained on his palm seemed familiar to him. The others suggested that they continue sleeping, but neither Jun nor Gook had any desire to return to bed. "Brother, don't think about us. Go back to sleep. We just want to follow you. Don't chase us away, please," says the short-haired guy, looking at Jun with a smile, like the others. "By the way, I'm Wilson. Senior, what are we going to do?" Gook asked awkwardly, not being thrilled with the players pestering them. "Since no one is sleeping, let's exchange information." Jun decided to spend his time allotted for rest wisely. "I have an idea about who was hiding under the bed." "What? You realized who it was just by touching it?" The players, in turn, did not understand, unlike Jun. "Move back a little," he said, dispersing the players who had settled around them to give them enough space. Touching the symbol on her wrist with 2 fingers, June opens her inventory above the floor. A corpse, which the guy picked up in the forest at the very beginning of the level, immediately falls out of it, hitting the wooden planks with a dull sound. The girls screamed, and the boys covered their noses and mouths with their palms from the sharp smell of rot that hit their sense of smell. Jun took Gook's clothes, which he had been wiping his bloody hands on, and rubbed the clean side of them on the corpse's limb. The smell, the color, and almost the same feeling of touch as the one under the bed, he announces, ignoring Gook's discontent behind his back. Almost immediately after his words, the corpse came to, howled with a dull roar and quickly, climbing along the floor, crawled towards Jun's leg. Reacting in time, Jun, without a moment's hesitation, lifted his leg and with a sharp movement pressed the corpse back to the floor, pressing on the chest. "I found it in the foliage outside, it looked interesting to me, so I grabbed it," the guy explains to the guys, putting the body back into his inventory. "What kind of mines? No one checked the corpses during the game?" Jun waved his hand, seeing the players' unreadable stony faces. "Okay, to the point. This dead man and the body that collided with Wilson are the same." June begins to describe her thoughts and guesses about the meaning of the corpses in more detail. "If there is one, then there are 2, then there are 3, and 4, and so on. Whoever wants to can come with me tomorrow to look around. There might be more there." Jun doesn't have time to finish speaking before Gook eagerly puts forward his candidacy. "Of course, you pay me. If anything happens, I would tie you to myself and drag you," Jun sarcastically quips in response, causing Gook to laugh nervously. "Brother, in the beginning they talked about breaking family rules," Wilson recalled, looking anxiously at the floor. "So that's why I was attacked. So there's no collective punishment here, the victim is chosen at random." According to Wilson, the players had discovered at least one condition for death, and Mother had not come to them, meaning that the night noise was not considered a violation of family rules. It was decided to look for more clues and split up. Some went to explore the second floor, Gook went to the part with the bookshelves, and Jun stopped at the door of one of the rooms on the first. "Senior, I found some educational picture books. Perhaps they are the younger sisters?" Gook suggested, returning to the elder, receiving only a dry agreement in response. "Don't you think it's too crowded in here?" Jun asked, not at all interested in the literature he had found. "The mansion looks huge, but inside, everything doesn't match the size," Gook said, explaining the meaning of his words to his lack of understanding. "There's probably a large space there." Gook, humming thoughtfully, turned on the flashlight and approached the eye-level hole in the door, peering inside. They immediately stared back at him. A blood-red eye, unblinking, looked straight out of the darkness at Gook, not even reacting to the light of the flashlight. Gook immediately let out a loud scream, jumping back from the door, dropping the phone and backing away towards Jun. GLI. Gook muttered in a trembling voice, leaning his shoulder against the shoulder of Jun, who had not moved from his place. The elder one, groaning thoughtfully, stepped back to the door and leaned over, squinting through the hole at the same eye. Moving away from the door and without thinking twice, Jun sharply pokes her index finger into the hole, hitting the chosen target exactly, causing a deafening screech to be heard on the other side. "Didn't your mother teach you not to spy on people?" Jun asked, smiling sarcastically, leaning towards the door again. "You see, it led to trouble after all." The other boys came running to the squeal, suspecting that the same creature had returned from under the bed, but Jun immediately calmed them down, refuting the assumption. "Don't be afraid, there's only a ghost there." The boys weren't particularly reassured by his words. "So that's it, at this level ghosts experience pain and a response to it." "DZYY came from somewhere above, forcing them to raise their heads and meet the dark figure of the doll. "Congratulations! Player Jun has completed the hidden quest. Where is the sister? Reward: 200 points. Please, players, keep up the good work." Unlike Rabbit in the previous level, Doll was happy with this kind of playthrough. "We wish everyone a pleasant game." "So you're our sister," Jun drawls, returning to the door with a kind smile. "Little sister, remember how they say? With respect to the elders and love for the younger, so please understand and forgive me this time." "How come you're locked in?" Jun says forcefully, maintaining eye contact without hesitation. "Let me call my mom now and ask you to open the door?" There is no response to his proposal, and the boy demonstratively calls mother at the top of his voice, but only silence is heard in response. Judging by everything, the hierarchy in the plot is as follows. First the mother, then the older sister, and then the player, the guy concludes, turning to the others for a general consultation. It's unclear about the younger one, we'll only find out when she wakes up. "But, senior, how did you understand that Headmistress Lee is more important than the senior sister?" Gook didn't understand. Remember the plot. Lee is very strict with her children, which means that both the players and the older sister are in an equal position, Jun explains, snapping her fingers. Most likely, the older one was punished for pretending to be sick and sneaking out into the street, and her lie means fear of her mother. If she had been on friendly terms with her mother, she wouldn't have deceived her, but would have simply made an agreement with her. Jun finishes her explanation to the player's surprised sighs. Indeed, Gook bursts into flames with delight, suddenly realizing everything that the elder had reported. This amazed not only Gook, but also Wilson, who had previously been confident only in Jun's physical strength, thanks to which he passed the level. Feeling the guy's gaze on her, Jun asks about clues on the next floor, and Wilson awkwardly reports a complete lack of even the slightest clues. It was strange for Jun, but he identified two things that they needed to understand first: why the sister disobeyed her mother and went outside, and what was hidden in the room behind that door. "Once we know this, will we be able to pass the level?" Gook asked, catching Jun's guess that things wouldn't be that simple. "At dawn, as planned, we'll go see how many more corpses there are around, and maybe find some clues," Jun said, moving towards the stairs and deep in thought. There was too little information for him. He decided to check the second floor again on his own, when he heard footsteps behind him. "Why are you following me?" Jun turns her head over her shoulder and looks at the players with a skeptical look. "This is how we feel safe," one of the players decided to answer for everyone, embarrassed. Jun exhaled heavily, remained silent for a few seconds, and reluctantly agreed to this, allowing himself to stay close to him. "It seems that the older sister is important and will appear later in the plot. Aren't you afraid that she will cause problems?" During the general meeting on the first floor, Gook asks, and then adds in a whisper. You poked her in the eye, didn't you? Judging by the way my mother treated me yesterday, she does care about me. June mutters while unpacking the envelope with the letter from the table. Mom has to go into town. It will take about 10 days, Wilson reads aloud. Be good kids and help your mom find her lost mask before the exhibition starts at the end of the month. Listen to your older sister. Wilson finishes sadly and immediately receives a letter in the face from June, informing him of the conditions of the game. The condition is to find a mask? Wilson, reading the text again, scratches his head in confusion. But we've already climbed all over the house, there's no mask here. Of course, it's not that easy to find, Gook interjects, remembering what Jun said about the discrepancy between the size of the mansion outside and inside. Perhaps the mask is on the other side of the door where the sister was. What do you think, Senior? Gook eagerly asked Jun for advice, distracting him from the important process of making a sandwich. Let's have breakfast, June says confidently, conveying to the others that there's no point in following the plan now. We need to scout out what's outside first. After entering the game, the corpses did not move, and when Jun told his mother about the one he found, she did not even think about it, from which Jun concludes that the headmistress Lee knows about the corpses. From his observations, June concluded that the dead were active only at certain times after sunset. That's encouraging. Wilson sighed under his breath, reluctantly following June through the forest, just like the others. Having stopped the assembled squad at the place where they had originally appeared, Jun gave the order to begin and everyone dispersed in different directions in a circle. Checking the leaves, suspicious tussocks, and soft earth, everyone worked hard to find more dead bodies, but so far the search had been unsuccessful. I found it. There's one here. The girl player was the first to get lucky. She hit her hand with the tip of her shovel among a pile of rotting leaves. Me too. Congratulate me, brother, I have 2 of them. The voices of the guys who found the bodies in the ground began to be heard from different sides. They pulled out all the ones they found and put them in a common line, thoughtfully examining the lifeless bodies and wondering how to proceed. Maybe we should put them in the inventory? Gook suggested, to which Jun immediately refused. There wouldn't be enough space for more than 20 bodies. I propose that we separate all their limbs and head from the body, taking them apart thoroughly, says the elder, effectively pushing his foot into the neck of one of the corpses with a ready swing. Isn't that too harsh? Wilson asks nervously, turning away. If we do this, will everything be okay? It's okay, Gook assures, understanding the meaning of Jun's actions. If we dismember them, they will become helpless and won't even be able to reach us. Jun immediately praised Gook. That's exactly what he meant, and Gook himself caught himself thinking that he was already beginning to reason like an elder, lest his own soul turn black. Don't worry, it won't cause any mental problems, June assures calmly, bracing herself for the blow. They're not people. A precise, aimed blow lands on the corpse's neck, separating the head from the body, which flies to the side like a basketball. Having decided that either they or the corpses would do it, the boys gathered their strength and got down to business, quickly separating limbs and heads from the dead bodies. In the hustle and bustle of things, they don't notice another person joining their company. The girl, who had not previously appeared in the players' eyes, silently appeared behind them, stopping a few meters away and seeming to be languidly awaiting their attention. One of the heads that Jun had cut off flew precisely towards the girl under his power. Noticing this, June froze, surprised no longer by the direction of the head, but by who it was flying at. What are you doing? The girl asked menacingly, confidently dodging a flying ember. Gook froze with the shovel in his hand, noticing the bandage covering one of the girl's eyes and immediately realizing who she was. Following him, Jun also understood, grinning and finally meeting the long-awaited character. Good morning, he says in a cheerful tone, saluting with 2 fingers. Little sister. The older sister snorted with displeasure, and Jun had an individual task, as a numbered player, notifying that the older one was sitting at home all the time, because her mother wouldn't let her go anywhere, and her peers had already found a loved one. Special conditions for passing are determined due to the fact that the level is multiplayer, and if Jun passes the level, corresponding to this task, the passage will be counted for everyone. Jun, 800 points, other players 200. Juna was clearly not satisfied with this figure, and the task did not really make sense, especially since it was necessary to contact the older sister. "Why are you all outside?" the sister asked in the meantime, maintaining a displeased tone. "If the youngest wakes up and doesn't see anyone, she'll start howling. Besides, the exhibition is opening soon. We need to tidy up the hall as soon as possible." She glanced at the players' heads. "I'll choose one of you to sit with the youngest, and the rest of you will clean up." "You." The sister's choice immediately fell on one of the female players. "Take care of the youngest. Brother Jun, please save me." She immediately rushed to Jun, grabbing the sleeve of his jacket like a life preserver. "Please help me, I don't want to be alone with this creature, even if it's a baby." Jun sighed humbly, remaining calm, unhooked the girl's hands from his sleeve, and put one arm around her back. "Everything will be fine, trust me," the guy said, adding conviction to his tone. "The exhibition hall is where my sister was locked up yesterday. If you think about it, the level should be small. In case of danger, run away immediately and call us. We will hear," Jun says a little more quietly, leaning towards the ear of the girl, who is blushing. Gook suggested dealing with the older sister while they had shovels in their hands, to which Jun refused, since his mother had clearly instructed him to obey his older sister. In a low voice, he advised Gook not to take unnecessary risks and not to tempt fate, since they didn't know what the murder of their older sister would lead to. So, Jun approached the girl and leaned towards her with a smile. "Sister, take us to the exhibition hall." The room that the older sister brought the players to really needed cleaning, it was obvious to the naked eye. "Since the exhibition starts at the end of the month, hurry up," the sister ordered, passing by Jun. "Just don't damage anything, unless you want to spend the night alone locked up." Having said this, she calmly left, slamming the door behind her and leaving the players alone in the exhibition hall. "Where are the water and rags? We came here to clean up," Wilson angrily protested, dissatisfied with the elder's dismissive behavior. "Are you really going to clean up?" "Hello, mask search," Goop cheerfully reminds, to which Wilson curses and apologizes, justifying his fascination with the game. Meanwhile, June freezes in her thoughts. There was a bucket in the bathroom, lots of rags in the kitchen, and a faucet outside, perhaps even working. There is no door in the exhibition hall connecting it to the corridor, which means there was something between it and the living area, so June warns of her departure, deciding to test the theory. "Gook, stay here and tell the truth if your sister asks anything," Jun quietly commands, bending Gook towards her by the neck. "You haven't broken anything, and the game won't just kill random people." Meanwhile, in her younger sister's bedroom, the girl player, with tears in her eyes and a trembling voice, read a children's book, trying to calm the child. But this hardly helped the youngest to keep herself under control. She had already woken up, which meant it was time for lunch. As June walked through the corridors, the bedroom door creaked, opening as if from a light push and attracting the guy's attention. He stopped, glanced at the open door and, after thinking for a bit, opened it completely. "Senior." The girl player, seeing Jun, immediately rushes to him, passing the books and the crib of the younger sister. "As you advised, I read her children's fairy tales with pictures, and she more or less calmed down. But as soon as I stopped, she, the girl sobbed, her voice still trembling and uncertain. "She'll get back to her old ways sooner or later." According to Jun's assumptions, the youngest was indeed not so simple, given her addiction to blood instead of milk. The weak calm from reading the book disappeared, her eyes, directed at Jun and the girl, filled with desire. The veins on her smooth face swelled. She dropped to all fours and ran towards them with a roar, frightening the girl player who was again clinging to Jun, who stood confidently in place. Having made an inhuman and, even more so, not childish jump over the heads of the players, she opens her mouth wide, showing sharp, shark-like teeth. June waits for the right moment and, swinging her arm, aims a kick across the stomach, throwing the younger one to the side. In the astonished confusion of a child, the younger one does not have time to react, only rushing towards the window under the force of the blow. The older sister immediately appears, passing the players and with a deft movement intercepting the younger one in flight. From the familiar older one, the younger one immediately calms down, peacefully sitting on the girl's arms and hiding her animalistic grin. "Is this how you raise your children?" the older one snorted discontentedly. "Who talked yesterday about respect for elders and love for the younger ones? Do you think you've done something wrong now?" June froze. The violation of family rules and misconduct could activate the punishment mechanism. It was necessary to take immediate measures. Sister, but it was yesterday's Jun who said this, not the current one. Wouldn't it be better to discuss this issue with him, not with me? By pretending to be innocent, Jun causes misunderstanding in her sister. Besides, I am me, and Jun, who kicked the little one, was here a minute ago. Jun continues to rattle off, confusing the words even more. And anyway, the little sister is a free, objective, quantum-entangled being, metaphysically not subject to exclusion from the learning process. How come I didn't notice your sharp tongue before? Her sister mutters, to which Jun feigns embarrassment, waving off the compliment. Since the older sister has come to look after the younger one, we will go and clean the exhibition hall, as expected. Taking the girl player with her, Jun quickly retreats to the exit. According to the boys' count, there were 108 display cases in the exhibition hall, and traces of how they had been standing were visible on the wooden floors. We moved several display cases, if I'm not mistaken. There used to be fewer of them here, and the distance between them was greater. Gook informs them of their observations, clearly showing the necessary display cases. I checked the faucet outside, it's working, so let's get to cleaning, Jun says, looking over her shoulder at the boys. Remember, Mom told you to listen to your big sister.